Request all students to please mute their microphones and turn off their videos. I request all students who've joined the session to please mute their microphones and turn off their videos. Good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to Education USA India's Discovery series webinars. These are a series of webinars on specific fields of study, and it's our endeavor to give you information about specific areas of interest that you might want to pursue for your higher education in the United States. Before we begin today's webinar on legal education in the United States, I'd like to go through certain housekeeping rules and introduce the speakers for today, following which we will start the session. Please introduce yourself by typing your name, as that is, are you a parent or a student? Are you a law working professional as a lawyer? Are you a student counselor or a professor from a law school? Please mention your name, what your designation is, and from which city in India or outside of India if you are joining us. Please mention it in the chat box. It will help us understand our audience profile. I would request all students to please mute their microphones and turn off their videos to ensure that we have good bandwidth and streaming capacity. We would also request you to use headphones for enhanced audio quality. If you have any questions during the session or after the session, please chat them in the questions comments box. We will address questions following the end of the presentation. We have also uploaded handouts and information links, which will be available in the comments question section. Please feel free to download the PDF handouts that have been provided by the two universities. And you may also make a note of those links, information links, which you can always check for more information about admissions criteria and the programs offered at the university and so on. All right. If you have any question, if you wish to ask your question in person, then at the end of the session, please raise your hand and we will unmute your microphone and ask you your question. All right. With those basic rules, we will now start the session with an introduction to our two presenters today. Joshua M. Alter is Director of the Non-JD Programs and Adjunct Professor at University of Florida, Levin College of Law. Joshua previously served as Director of Graduate Global Engagement and Adjunct Professor of Law at another law school in New York. Joshua has spent his career working on all aspects of LLM and international student support, including career and professional development, academic advising, employer relations, recruiting and admissions, pre-LLM programming, and student services. He has lived, worked, and studied in Australia, China, Israel, and the Netherlands, and has been to India twice in his prior job. Welcome to the session, Joshua, and thank you so much for accepting to present today's session.
Thank you.
I now introduce Samudra. Samudra Kugel is Chief Officer for South Asia Initiatives at the University of California, Davis School of Law. She has worked with UC Davis for more than 7 years. Samudra is a frequent visitor to India and has participated in many law education activities in the past several years in New Delhi, Mumbai, and Bengaluru. She has visited top law schools in India and has met with excellent Indian law students and practitioners during her travels. Samudra has earned a master's degree and is currently pursuing her doctoral degree in education. Thank you so much, Samudra, for joining us, even though it is quite an unearthly hour in California, as I understand. But we really appreciate your taking the time out and joining us today.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. So we'll begin our presentation today on legal education in the United States for international students. To begin with, I will give you a brief introduction to Education USA and then hand it over to our presenters to do their part of the presentation. Education USA is supported by the US Department of State, and we come under the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs. Our mandate is to provide accurate, comprehensive, current information on higher education in the US. We are a global network of 430 plus advising centers in over 170 countries. In India alone, we have 7 Education USA centers, which are located in Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, and New Delhi. I would really request the students to note that Education USA is your official source of information on US higher education. We have a plethora of free services and paid services, and students may reach out to the nearest Education USA center to access current, accurate, and comprehensive information about studying in the US. Before we move on, I'd just like to give you a quick understanding of the 5 steps to US studies advocated by Education USA. We advise students that the process of applying to US universities needs to begin early as 12 to 18 months prior to joining the university. And there are 5 basic key steps that you need to follow in your application process. The first step is researching your options, identifying your priorities, and shortlisting universities. The second is, of course, figuring out how you're going to fund your education. The third step is completing your application package, which is essentially putting together all components that go into the application. And of course, once you get the admission decision from the university, then you have the important step of applying for the F1 student visa, followed by the preparatory processes for the pre-departure orientation. Please reach out to the nearest Education USA center to understand what goes into all of these 5 steps to US study. We look forward to interacting with you and advising you in the coming days. We will be sharing our contact information at the end of this presentation, so do wait for that information. Right, okay, so we're now starting off with this session, and I invite Joshua to start his presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And great to meet everyone. We're happy to be here. And on the next slide, we'll see my information, which is, if we can go to the next slide, please. Maybe, wonderful. So my Education USA story is, I think Education USA is the most amazing group of people. They are interested in each one of you, find the program that is the right fit for you. And that's the important thing, finding the school, finding the people that are really going to make you successful as a law student. And so I was in India twice. Time I went there, I went to every Education USA office. I was greeted and welcomed everywhere I went. And these are people who really are dedicated to figuring out what you want to do. And so law is not the most popular major for Indian students to study in America. It's actually not in the top few, but having this session is showing their commitment to helping anybody who wants a legal education get one in the United States. So we're really, really happy to be here and to talk to you a little bit about law. So we'll also let Samudra introduce herself now, and we're going to be working together on most of the slides.
Thank you so much, Joshua. And I just wanted to re-echo what Joshua said. Education USA is an amazing organization. I have worked with Education USA all my career, and especially our friends from Indian different branches. And even for the students, it's a great resource. They usually have libraries that we send out our booklets from all over the US. So I would really encourage you to go and check out the library when things are hopefully open up. And then also I really encourage you to meet with the advisors in your home area. And so mine, just like previously introduced, I'm Samudra, and I have been to India multiple times a year. Last, I would say 7 to 10 years of my career. And I'm such an honor to present this presentation with Joshua from University of Florida. And this is the first time we are doing together. Hopefully many more to come in the future, but I'm really happy to be here today.
Thank you. So if we go to the next slide, this is what the students and the lawyers on the call want to know about, which is your goals, right? The starting point. So before we start with this, you will come to America for a legal education after you already have a bachelor's degree. So you can do a bachelor in America, you can do a BA LLB in India, you can go somewhere else. But for high school students on the call, you have a little bit of time before you're going to making these big decisions. For those of you in the law colleges and for those of you who are practicing lawyers, the first thing I say to anybody who calls me up or emails me is, what are your goals, right? And so the three things that I think you should be thinking about carefully. Every time I go to India, the three favorite letters I hear are ROI, return on investment. So I'm asking, what are you looking to do after graduation? Are you looking to work in the United States, or are you looking to return to India or go to another jurisdiction? Number two, what is your realistic financial situation for this investment? Law schools in America are more akin to professional schools as opposed to like a PhD program with full funding. And then three is, how strong are your pre-US credentials in ways that will help you in India and in the USA? Obviously, India has national law colleges. There are certain law firms that are more famous than others. There's certain work experience, your mark sheets, kind of what type of candidate are you? And that's the starting point that I have with each student. Samudra, anything you'd like to add on that for students' goals?
I just want to add for the high school students, we are so happy you're here. You can early on plan your future. I mean, I know that in India, there's a 3-year law programs or 5 years. So this is kind of a process, but I'm so glad you're here to kind of understand even throughout the presentation, we are talking about that what you need, what's the application process look like. So I think it's a good idea for you to think about kind of early on what's next 5 to 8 years going to look like.
Thank you. And if we can go to the next slide, please. This is the most complicated part, right? Choosing the right program. And so American law schools all have a JD program, a Juris Doctor, which traditionally is a 3-year degree. It's the degree that I have, and you do that after your bachelor's. So in America, we don't really have a law major for bachelor's. You can study any subject, mathematics, history, political science is what I did, and then you do the 3-year JD. But what's happened is they've also created some schools a 2-year JD. So if you're already a lawyer in another country and you want a JD in America, this will be like an advanced JD where 1 year of your law credits from your home country gets added to the JD. So it's only 2 years. UF does not have a 2-year JD, so I'm not trying to tell you to do one of those at UF, but every school will have at least the JD. And then the degree that a lot of people on this call are a lot more familiar with in America is the LLM, the 1-year program. But even for an LLM, there's different kind of specialties. So some people will get a general LLM, mostly people who are looking to take a bar exam and kind of take a certain set of subjects. Specialized LLMs, if you want to go into bankruptcy, tax, human rights, environmental law. 3-semester LLMs, which is a kind of way to structure your program so you have a summer to do an internship and you have more time to take more classes. There's popular ways to do an LLM and then transfer to a JD at that school or another school. There's an SJD, which is kind of like a PhD in law, but a little bit different. There are certificate programs that you can do online or in person. And because American law schools love creating non-JD programs, that's my entire life. There's a new type of degree, which is a master's for non-lawyers. So people who are in compliance, human resources, any law adjacent field that want to learn a little bit about law. And for the certificates and master for non-lawyers programs, a lot of those are online now. So UF, we have a JD, we have a general LLM, we have a specialized LLM, we have an SJD. UC Davis, which of these do you have?
So we do have the traditional general LLM, and then we have different areas that students can be specialized. So we do have general LLM, specialized, and also that a 2-year LLM if students wanted to do kind of take more classes, and just like Joshua was saying, take the advantage of the internship opportunities. So that's kind of more lengthier LLM, and a student will like sit down with the advisor and kind of plan their academic plan for 2 years. So yeah, and yeah, I think, and of course we do have a JD program, and then I know that later we are going to talk about LLM to JD too. So, yeah.
Perfect. So if we go to the next slide, this will be the final part of my three-part kind of 1, 2, 3, is a note on JD programs and non-JD programs. So American law schools are ranked, right? You've heard a lot about the US News rankings, and we'll cover that in a bit. But almost all of the rankings are focused on JD metrics. Who do you admit to your JD class? How do your JD students do on the bar? How do your JD students do in the job search? And so for American law schools, there's really an incentive to have a smaller JD program, in the sense that JD students, their outputs, their outcomes are measured for the rankings. Whereas we really have an incentive to have bigger non-JD programs, because the ABA, the American Bar Association, doesn't highlight these statistics for the non-JD programs. And so what I want you to do is to just be careful, because a lot of the research that Americans do for a JD, some of the first steps and second steps are also good for non-JD programs, but you have to be much more proactive in getting information. You can't just rely on the JD metrics to be a proxy for the non-JD metrics. And that's something that I love speaking with students about, to help them really figure out what is the best program for each individual student. This is a personal decision, and an LLM can be the perfect fit for you, or it can be not a good fit for you. There's no better or worse. Everything's just a little bit different. And so I know that both of us have some experience with LLM, some experience with other programs. So from the Davis side, anything else you want to share with them about this JD versus non-JD distinction?
No, I think you cover it all, and it's most importantly, it's just right fit for you. So a ranking that it's just a one indicator. Again, it's most law schools rank by JD programs, but again, there's other rankings, right? That the US News public university ranking, for example. So those are some other indicators that if you specifically, like kind of holistically looking for to go to a good school, kind of look at, is this school top 50 school or 100 school or a top 10? But again, just I always tell my students that some students ask, I mean, this is my experience with even undergraduates or even other masters or PhDs. People say that, oh, I wanted to go to Harvard, but I want to study agriculture. But I'm kind of speaking for these high school students in the audience. So it's always good to kind of think about what that university specializes in, and then figure out that what's best. So Harvard may be not good for the agriculture, for example. So it's always good, really have to be, there's so many rankings out there. So just be thoughtful about it.
Thank you. And these are two schools with high rankings telling you to not put all your effort into the ranking. So that just tells you something, is that people here know the rankings are a proxy, they're not perfect. And if we can go to the next slide, let's see. The final step is your school, right? So after I know what your goals are, and after I know what type of program you want to go to, then it's time to figure out which schools should be on your short list, as Education USA said. A lot of people do the reverse. They kind of pick a school and then try to make that school fit their goals. I don't think that that's a great idea. I think it's better to find the schools that are the right fit for you. And that's why I love Education USA, because that's what they're here to do for you without charging you fees for agent fees to kind of explain this to you. So who should you speak to, right? I think legal professionals you currently work with or for, especially those that went to America to study, alumni of your law college in India, if you have a law background, your broader network in India and in the US. You might have relatives, you might have family friends, you might have people who have a better understanding, good research and due diligence, we'll talk about that. And then the US law school rankings, there's an asterisk because again, it's a proxy, it's not perfect. And that's what we're here to do today, is not tell you come to Davis, come to UF. We're here to tell you, do the research, get the information, and then choose the school that's the best for you. So a couple more slides and then I will turn it over. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Let's see. And then this one is a great example of what I mean by fit. Many, many, many international students will come right after the BA LLB or after the LLB to the United States. At UF, almost every one of our international students is already a lawyer. Most of them have already been practicing for at least 3, 5, 7, 10 years. And the reason this is important is in our culture at UF, our practicing attorneys are taking high-level international tax courses where they're bringing their experience into the classroom. And our students are able to be research assistants for professors because professors don't see them as a junior student who just finished their training. Professors here see our students as experienced tax practitioners or experienced practitioners who have something to contribute to their research or their information. So again, this is something where each school will be different. And for some schools, immediately after your bachelor's program can be a great fit. For some schools, and most schools, I think 1 to 2 years out can be good. For some schools, it might be better for even longer. And so I think what this matters for UF for is for our international students, a lot of them want to stay in America after they graduate to work. And so when I speak with employers, if they're gonna hire a student and one has 5 years of experience doing work in a law firm in India, and the other just finished the BA LLB and came for our LLM, most of the time, all things being equal, they'll take the person with the experience. And so because I know the goals of our students, I really try to match up kind of when is the right time to come. If a student is not looking to stay in America, UF might be a bad fit to wait 5, 7 years to come to. And so I wanted to bring Davis in on this for talking about if a student wants to stay in America, what you do, versus if a student you know is looking to return to India to practice.
Yeah, so we at School of Law at Davis that we have different students from different backgrounds, and we do welcome students from right away. I mean, students starting to apply to UC Davis that kind of early on, even before they graduate, they can start the process. So we have students who have done their LLB and then apply right away and have work experience and even have long-term experience, or some people even want to do law as a second or third careers. So we have a pretty diverse student background. And most of our students from our LLM program, they return home to practice in their home countries. So that's kind of our experience. And the students who want to stay, that they would start out maybe doing an internship and then taking the bar and then kind of try to figure out their career in the US. But majority of the students will go home.
Thank you. And if we can go to the next slide, I know that we are coming up on the halfway mark, so we will keep moving along. Law school hiring. So for JD students at Davis, at UF, at most US law schools, JD students will do a first year summer internship, and then the law firms, the employers will come to the campus on something called OCI to meet with the students for second summer associate positions at law firms. And a lot of those will turn into permanent offers after they graduate. Other students find jobs by doing internships and externships, by doing clinics. And these are JD opportunities. In LLM, there's a consortium of about 33 schools that work together. We all go to New York at NYU every year, where the employers from around the world are looking to recruit LLM students, mostly who want to return home. So the biggest law firms in Asia, Europe, Latin America, Middle East are coming to New York to interview LLMs. At specialized programs like UF and other tax programs, we have a special event for our tax students where American employers and some international are looking to meet students. But all students, when you're in law school, if your goal is to get a very good job, you're talking about networking, alumni connections from the law school you go to, meeting with your professors who might have recommendations, something called Simplicity, which is just a software a lot of American law schools use to post jobs. Some of those are looking for LLMs, and then people can apply directly to law firms and organizations that they're looking to work with. And we'll be able to answer questions about that at the end as well. So if we can go to the next slide. UF, again, we are one of the top public law schools in the country, number 7 and number 24 among all law schools, which our JD program is very proud of. And if we go to the next slide, our tax program is one of the most famous in the United States and in the world, number 1 among the publics and tied for number 3 among all law schools. And so my final slide, I think, if we go to the next one, is good examples of tax gators, right? Both of these professionals worked in India after they graduated. They did not come right away. And now Mr. Bansal is working in Los Angeles and Ms. Desai is working in Seattle, both doing tax work. And so for them, you can see one's at KPMG, one's at Deloitte, and they both went to the University of Florida. So they gave me permission to use their profiles today. They're very proud of being part of the UF community. And they're people that I like to reach out to when I have questions. And so if we go to the next slide, I think we are handing it over to Davis, but I'll be happy to jump in if you need any help.
Yeah, thank you. And you can go to the next slide. So let's kind of talk about how to becoming a licensed practitioner in the US. After you go through the LLM program, so some students, just like I said, they decide to go home. Some students, they wanted to take the bar examination. And for our students at Davis, the California bar, that's the pretty obvious popular bar examination. But I just wanted to say that we have 50 states in the US, right? And so each state have their own constitution and government structure, legal codes, and so it's very specific to each state. So that means each state have their own bar. So I think my recommendation that wherever you decide to go to pursue your LLM degree, please be aware of the bar regulations and what are the requirements that for you to go through the bar process. So, and this is a kind of very important website and comprehensive guide to the bar admissions, and this update annually. So I would recommend that if you wanted to kind of take a picture or write down this, this is kind of an important website, and you can kind of learn about all different different types of requirement throughout the different states in the US. Joshua, you want to add anything?
I think after you do the next slide, I'll do a little bit about both bar exam slides.
Okay, okay. Go to the next slide, please. So, so this kind of a 3-part process. So the education, so you may wonder that your current, the LLB degree, after that degree, are you qualified for the bar exam? Or after your LLM, are you qualified for that? So that's kind of the education part. So at UC Davis, that after students done with the LLM or during the process that we do help prepare students for the bar examination. And then, but also it's important that check with the bar association to see that your qualifications from your home country give the eligibility for you to sit for the bar. And also, so that examination given twice per year, and it's a 2-day process. And also there's this additional components. It's NPRE, it's a multiple choice portion, and then the character and fitness, and the pro bono. So this is kind of the guideline I talked to you earlier about. So if you want kind of more dive into more deeper information, I would really recommend kind of go through this the requirement section in this book. Josh, you want to add something?
Sure. So this is one of the first questions I get from all students, and I got one privately in the chat. It's like, can I sit for the bar exam? The US law schools aren't able to tell you that. You have to go to the Board of Law Examiners or the Court of Appeals, or the highest court in that state, and get a determination. So I'm most familiar with New York. That's where I took the bar exam in 2013. That's where a lot of general LLM students take the bar exam, unless they go to a great law in California. And so for New York, there's a process that begins before you ever come to do an LLM, where you send your Indian law degree credentials to New York, and they issue you a statement, whether you're already eligible to take it, whether you need an LLM to take it, or whether you're not eligible to take the bar exam with an LLM. That might be if you did like an online program in India, or if you did like a law and diplomacy or law and politics type of major. So that's just something to think about. If you do a JD from any ABA school, American Bar Association, there's about 200 of them, including UF and Davis, you can sit for the bar exam in any state. So any JD graduate of Davis, UF, and other schools has that flexibility. For LLM, you have to figure out, does that state let you become a lawyer? And so Florida is a good example. You cannot become a lawyer through an LLM as a foreign student. You would have to do a JD instead. The second thing I wanted to just briefly point out is you don't really become an American lawyer, you become a New York lawyer or a California lawyer at the state level, and then you can get sworn in to practice federal law at the national level in other states. But if you're a lawyer in New York, you can't do state law court stuff in Florida. You would have to work with an attorney who's there. And then the third and final point before we move on is what I call the hidden costs of law school, right? So you think about the tuition, but every JD student when I was in law school, we bought a course separate from the law school at the end of our JD for 3 years to prepare for the bar. Those can be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, right? And so we'll get into this in a little bit, but tuition is one part of a broader, what we call cost of attendance. And the bar exam is one of those expensive additional costs that is unrelated to your education in an LLM or in a JD program. So back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Please go to the next slide. Okay, so let's kind of talk about how should you choose your school. And so earlier Joshua talked about the fit, what's your fit to the law school or to the university overall. So I don't know that, Joshua, what you recommend, but I always recommend the magic number for me, like a 5 law schools kind of as a short list. Do you agree with that, or you have kind of a magic number?
No magic number, but I think that that is definitely on track.
Okay, good, good. Please go to the next slide. Yeah, the next, please. Oh.
The main reason I decided to do LLM in business law was because the subjects I'm studying right now, I didn't know that much about them when I was studying law back home, like antitrust and copyright. We just read about them a little bit, but here we get a chance to read about them in detail. I do consider Davis to be a top law school. And with regard to the things I get to learn here, like every day there's some of the other seminar happening during the lunch hours and the other hours. Like even now I am going to a seminar by a Stanford professor. So that way it keeps us updated with the things happening in the legal world. The things that set Davis apart from the other schools I looked at have to be firstly the ranking, and then the funding they offered me, and the fact that they decided to treat all the LLM students on the same level with the JD students. For people who are deciding where to pursue an LM, all I can say is that in my personal opinion, they should, because the opportunity you get coming to a very good law school and studying here with the other students is really big. I'm extremely happy here.
Sorry, that video kind of came sooner than I expected, but that's one of our alumni, that successful alumni from India, from Bangalore. So what are the things to consider? So these are kind of the 5 things I always talk to our students about. The faculty. So how can you know about the faculty? So these are some of the tips. So if you go to law school website, you can look up who are the faculty in that specific law school. So you can, if you like to publish, or if you wanted to do research, or if you wanted to, if you have a specific area of law that you want to study, it's kind of important to know that who are the faculty members in that specific university. So that's one of the points. And alumni success, just like Joshua mentioned earlier, that alumni, they're great resource. So law school websites normally have their testimonials, but I would even recommend that for the current students who are enrolled at your Indian law school, you can ask your principal or the deans that, are there any students pursue a degree in US? So maybe they may be able to provide you some names or contact information. Or also that another way, that if you have that short list of 5 schools, you can approach the next stage. You can approach and ask them, are there any your graduates from India, and what are they, where are they? Can I get permission, or can you contact them and gain permission for me to contact them? So that's kind of how you do that type of networking. And also another thing to kind of look at, support services for the students. So one is a career service, that are they able to help you find an internship, or are they help you to polish up your resume and write in a cover letter? And also one of the things I like to tell my students, even before they ever come to a law school, they may have a feeling about the support services even early on. Some students tell me that they write like 20 emails, but they don't hear back from their school, and it's kind of everything go to a black hole. So maybe that may be a red flag. I think that's kind of the student services, support services. If they're really on top of these services, they should be getting back to you within 24 hours to 48 hours, or a maximum within a few days. So that's another indicator that that school is on top of their services. And the reputation, we talked about ranking, and it's a one indicator, and it's always good to kind of look up and do your research. And also the ranking and reputation kind of go hand in hand. And just make sure that you have heard of this school, and then are they done what their contributions to the legal field, and also specifically for your area of interest. So those are kind of the points that I would recommend for you to consider that before you selecting your law school to apply, at least for those the short list. And also I wanted to kind of add that as an international student, when you travel like 5,000-6,000 miles away from your home country and the family, most of us students, they love the environment at the beginning when you travel, but then they can easily get homesick. So think about the law school, the location too, it's very, very important. Think about, do you have some family? Do you have friends, your support system in that state? So that's kind of one of the personal advices when I talk to my students, I ask them that that's normally a piece they don't think about very much, but I think the support system is important too. Please go to the, Joshua, you have anything to add?
Just very briefly, I agree completely with that. International students require more work from a visa standpoint. So for working like in a clinic or an externship, OPT, CPT are words that you'll quickly learn. There's extra difficulties. And so what you want to do is speak with the schools and the representatives about what additional support they give for international students. And I think that that's very important and a way to kind of differentiate schools. And the only other one that I'll talk about very briefly is combined programs. So if you know you want to do a JD MBA, or you want to do a JD LLM, or you want to do some combination of degrees, it can be good to choose a school based on one of those factors as well. And then obviously the important one for everyone is scholarships, right? So which schools are offering scholarships for the students to come?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's move to the next slide. Yeah, you can just open up all the bullets, please. We kind of talked about this early on, but so the program options. Some law schools, they do general LM, some are specialized. So it's, if you have an area of interest, that's really good that you focus on those law schools, and also the bar preparation. What extent that law school offering the bar preparation. And again, we talked about UC Davis having 2-year LLM programs. So if you, that's one of your goals, to stay longer, that look at the duration of the LLM program. There are 1 year, 3 terms, 2-year different programs. So that's another, it can tie into the financials too, like how much, I mean, 2 years longer means that you're paying 2 years worth of tuition. So, and living expenses. So are you prepared for that? So budget is important to figure out the duration of your stay in the US. And also the English. So I know that Indian students normally don't have this issue, but if you think you wanted some support with maybe for legal writing, are there any courses offering from that law school? And also Joshua kind of touched on this, the transfer to JD programs afterwards, and what's kind of how that going to work. Students end up getting LLM and JD both degrees, or at UC Davis, how that works, the students will be in LLM program, and then if they wanted to transfer, they needed to have a good GPA and good grades, and the student will sit down and work with a plan that LLM to JD, but then at the end of the day, student will be getting the JD degree, not 2 degrees. So because the credits will be transferred into the JD program. So those are kind of all the things for you to think about when you're looking for a LLM program in the US. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is another tool for you to have. So next 2 slides, I'm going to kind of give you some websites and some tools that if you don't know about LSAC, that you can, this is another slide you should take a picture or write down. So this is a place that, so the application process for the law school. Some law schools that they only want you to go through LSAC. So this is the place you fill out your application and submit all your documents. And for all the law schools in the US, so if you wanted to apply for multiple of them, you go here and then submit your application. But some law schools, they accept their own online application. and documents mailed or scanned or multiple different ways. So at UC Davis, we accept applications from LSAC, and we have our own online application both. So students can send out materials, scan or by mail, multiple different ways. Our admission director will guide the student through the process. So I just wanted to introduce this website to you. Next slide, please. And also these are some other research tools that this is another place if you want to take a picture of this slide and go back and kind of do more research. So the llm.guide.com. And then again, I really encourage you to go to the individual law school website, especially if you want to learn about the faculty information. And don't be shy, contact admission officers, and that they are very nice and wanted to help you. Again, communication is the key. That if you don't hear back from them in a couple of weeks or the couple of days, it's okay to do a follow-up. And also social media, it's huge these days. So most of the law schools keep a very active social media platforms. And again, our friends at Education USA, there are people in the field, so you can go and talk to them. They give very unbiased information to you about all the schools in the US. And there are LLM-focused education fairs. I know that Education USA hold graduate fairs, and also there are few LLM fairs that I have attended in the past in India. So those are mostly free to the students. So it's good for you to visit when things are open up, if the in-person fair is happening. And also there are virtual fairs, and these kind of webinars are great for you to connect with people like us and get more information. And yeah, and then there are some schools provide online chats. So that's another feature you should be thinking about using when you are researching law schools, the LLM programs. Joshua, you want to add anything?
Just very briefly, that was fantastic and you covered everything. For the LSAC, UF is an example of a school where you can only apply on LSAC. We don't let you apply directly. For people who want to apply to JD programs, you usually had to take the LSAT, the LSAT. Over the last 2 years, about 30 to 50 schools have started accepting the GRE as well. UF, we only accept the LSAT. I'm not sure about Davis. Do you accept both or just the LSAT as well?
I think it's LSAC. I'm not really sure that GRE. I haven't heard of the JD.
Right. And so for those of you who are thinking of a JD directly, there's going to be one extra admissions test where for the LLM, there usually isn't one. And then in terms of other research tools, I think that that really is a great list over there. So for those of you looking to apply to American law schools, some schools will be a little bit different than others in terms of their application process, but you want to give them enough time because the schools that only use LSAT, you have to send your transcripts directly from the law college to LSAT. Your professors have to send their recommendation letters to LSAT. So it can take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or more weeks for this to happen. So earlier applications are better.
Yeah. One more thing to add that there are some schools start once a year, and there's some schools have a January start. So that's another thing to kind of keep eye on. Please, next slide. Okay, just one of the favorite topics, cost and funding. Early on a little bit, I talked about the budget. So yeah, this is kind of very, very practical, real conversation, right? You live in your home country, and maybe some of your students, some of the students in the audience right now may be living in home and going to the law school in your home country. So, and your cost may be very low right now, but in India, but in American education, yeah, it's truly remarkable education, but there's cost for that. I would recommend that the 5 law schools I was kind of telling you about, the short list, I would recommend, this is how I looked for graduate school for myself. I would have an Excel sheet. I would put the university name, and I would have a columns, fill out what are their requirements. And then I would have a column for the cost, the tuition, and then living expenses that most of the universities advertise in their website. But in my experience, it's kind of the average to high pricing that schools advertise normally, because they want to make sure that you have enough money. But the living cost can change dramatically the way you wanted to live. If you wanted to live in your own apartment, 1-bedroom apartment with no roommates, you have your own place and own privacy, that may be expensive. But some of our students like to rent a 3-bedroom apartment, could be 4, 5, 6 students living, that can reduce that amount. So I would put in one column the tuition, and then fees, and then health insurance, because health insurance fee can change from state to state, a school to school. So that's another, international students are required to have health insurance. So that's another a big cost. So you put that on, and then the living expense, and you can, the living situation you would want it, and you can kind of adjust that and figure out the total cost. But the document after you getting admissions, the I-20, that's the document you need to take to the visa office. You need to show the amount that the university advertised in their website, or the admission letter talks about, or the I-20 talks about. You have to show that full amount. But the living cost, or the miscellaneous cost, that you can calculate depend on your lifestyle. So then when you know the cost for each law school, that's then the next step, that figuring out how much scholarships they provide, or if they provide any scholarships. So early on, you can have the conversation, or when you check or the research their websites, you will learn that do they have the scholarships or not. But they may not advertise in their website how much money you would get. But I get this question all the time. So you can approach a law school and ask that question directly from them, and it can change from law school to law school. What's the offering of scholarship? And like UC Davis, that we don't need students to submit a separate scholarship application or anything. We review the same application for the admission for the scholarship too. And when students being offered admission to our law school, the scholarship amount will be sent to the student very quickly with that admission letter too. So that point, the student will know how much money they will be getting as a scholarship. So it can operate differently from one law school to another. So it's good to ask that question from the admission officer. And also there are some external funding that we have this link that kind of gives some examples. And also the EducationUSA and Fulbright office is another source of finding scholarships. I know that there are the Fulbright scholarships. There's a master's scholarship program that you can apply. And I know that that's a very, very competitive scholarship, and it's like a year-long process. but it's worth to check out and with the Education USA office, and they may also have some other scholarship options for you. Joshua, you want to add to this favorite topic?
We're recording, so I'll try to be careful, but we're also almost at the time for questions and answers. So the only thing I'll say about that is one of the biggest questions, or cost is always the number one or maybe number two question students have. And for me, the question I get all the time is like, why don't I get a full scholarship or a full funding? And a lot of that has to do with the programming. So JD programs versus non-JD programs. For JDs, students will get scholarships based on their LSAT score and their GPA in a lot of instances. That helps with news rankings, and that helps with kind of the profile of the school. Whereas for the LLM programs, they don't really feed into the rankings from the metrics. So even if you went to the best law college in India, and even if you had the best mark sheets, you might get a good scholarship, but it usually won't be fully funded. Those tend to go to like judges or government officials from the law school side as kind of like a nice marketing piece of the wonderful people they have. So if you are doing an LLM program, scholarships are available. Every student I work with is looking to get some scholarship, which I totally understand. And so we are receptive to that, but it is hard because if the starting point is like a fully funded PhD, that's just a very different model from how the US law schools operate. But again, I'll get an email saying, Davis offered me this scholarship, what can you do? So we do have a scholarship consideration. Like Davis, we do it automatically. We're not asking you to tell us that you want a scholarship. We usually know you want a scholarship. And we do try to give our students their scholarship awards with their admission letter so that they have all the information they need to make their decision. Some schools you might get admitted and scholarship is a separate process. So just ask each school about that. But I know you have a couple last slides before we hit the questions and answer marks. So I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, the next, please. I'll go quickly. Okay, so just kind of wanted to tell you where Davis is, and north of San Francisco and kind of that star. And we are one of the top 10 public universities and largest of 10 universities in the California UC system. And we have about 36,000 students, about 500 law students. You can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, you can just open all the bullets. So these are some lovely pictures of Davis, and it's truly a college town and bicycle capital of the USA, and safe, family friendly, and very intellectual population. So you may be eating pizza or having coffee. It could be like a greatest researcher in one of the researchers in the world. So, and we do have a great climate, and we have a really good reputation of having a Mediterranean nice climate. Next, please. And these are our rankings of for the School of Law, and the #2 ranking for the most diverse in the country. So that means that we welcome a lot of international students, and or even within the domestic student population, we have a lot of students come from different backgrounds. Thank you. The next slide, please. And yeah, we do have, this is kind of snapshot of summary of what we are offering, and general LLM, and then a 2-year LLM, and then specialized LLM, and then spring starting. So we have 2 intakes. Next slide, please. And then these are some concentrations of the different subjects that programs we offer. So if you can always go to our website and see this list. So I just don't want to read each one, but this is the list. Next, please. And also we do have a summer programs. Even we ran an English program remotely this summer very successfully. I think about 40 students participated. It's English for Legal Professionals, the 2-week program. And also we run orientation in the USA law program that usually July August. Hopefully we are able to run these programs in person next summer. So even if I have people here that in the audience may don't want to do a huge commitment doing an LLM or a JD, but if they just wanted to come to US and get that experience, these are some small programs they can do if they like. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these are some pictures of Davis, and we are a land grant university, so it's a kind of lot of land. And University of Florida is a land grant too, right?
And we're 2 hours away from Disney World, so.
Yeah, I know. So we are just very good match to present together because we are kind of similar types of, we have agriculture programs and things like that. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the contact information that if you wanted to connect with us. And I encourage you all to connect with us and University of Florida, and you know people, and I'll actually type my email address in the chat box if you wanted to approach me. That'd be great. And I really thank you everybody for participating. And this is today's Thursday night. And please approach us, and we can even do individual meetings with you. And we are happy to help you. Not only, I'm sure Joshua agreed that not only for University of Florida or Davis, we will be happy to talk to you, any opportunities in the US. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joshua and Samudra. That was a great presentation, and I think you covered a lot of ground in terms of what our students in India would like to hear. We'll just go over a few more slides about Education USA, and we'll start the Q&A. We do have several questions that have been coming in, so I'll take that soon. Jaideep, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so this students is just some pointers on how you can connect with Education USA centers in India. The first thing is we do have a mobile application that is free to download both on the iOS and the Android platform. So please download the Education USA India mobile app. You'll be able to connect with Education USA centers through the app as well. Here are some of our services. You can sign up. This is our link that we have provided here, the EduSA sign up link. You can be added to our database, and you will receive information alerts about upcoming webinars, scholarship alerts, and new majors being offered by universities and so on. So we do request you to sign up to this database. We would also like you to check out our calendar of events, which I've shared here, the bit.ly Education USA India calendar link. All our upcoming information sessions are mentioned in that calendar. We have a national toll-free helpline, and the number is 1-800-103-1231. It's available from Monday through Friday between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. And you can talk to an Education USA advisor who will answer your queries on any topic related to US higher education. We offer free virtual sessions on the basic 5 steps to US studies. It's like a basic orientation session. And this session is offered Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. and on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 11:30 to from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 afternoon. Please to attend. Again, this is a free session. It's available every day of the week. You can connect with an Education USA advisor who will be on hand to answer any queries related to US higher education. We also do virtual specialized information sessions on admissions, applications process, or even field of study like the one we're doing today on legal education in the US. We also organize Facebook chats with an Education USA advisor, so please check our calendar regularly to see when the next chat might be coming up. Please do follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Follow, like, subscribe. You'll stay up to date with our information alerts. For every step of the application process, we have a video available on our YouTube channel, which is Education USA India. So please do follow us, and it's free to watch for all students. And of course, download the Education USA mobile app. And if you are interested in more of a one-to-one sort of personalized guidance, then you can write to an Education USA center and inquire about the paid membership services as well. The next slide, please. Yes, I'd just like to tell you about some upcoming information sessions that we are hosting. Education USA India is hosting this webinar series called the Undergraduate Application Camp. So we have sessions coming up now on September 1st. September 10th, 17th, and October 1 on these multiple topics. You can go to our Facebook page or Twitter or our calendar, and all this information is available there. The next slide, please, Jaydeep. We also have a graduate application camp, which has various sessions that will help you with your application process. Again, the dates are mentioned here. You can again go to our calendar of events or any of our social media platforms, and you can look up this calendar. And finally, we have the Discovery webinar series and today's session on legal education. The next slide, please, Jaydeep. And today's session on legal education in the US is the first of this series. We're doing it on multiple topics. Apart from legal education, we'll be talking about health, medicine, dentistry, nursing programs, art, and visual arts programs. We're talking about sports education and so on, various topics that we're going to be covering in the coming weeks. So do sign up to attend all of these programs in the coming days. And next one, please. Right, so we'll start with the Q&A. We've shared the contact details for our two presenters here on the screen, and please make a note of it. And also our Education USA email ID is over here. So we'll begin with the questions that we've received. To you, Joshua and Samudra both, we've received questions from both students who've joined us here on the Zoom chat room, but as well as from students who are watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So I'll read out a question, and I'll leave, perhaps we could take it in the order that Joshua, would you like to start first? Is that be okay? Or Samudra, would you like to go first?
Oh, we can just jump in, I think.
It's fine. Great.
I'll take the easier questions.
All right. So the first question we got was from a viewer who's watching us on Facebook, Sandeep Kashyap. He wants to know JD fees and scholarships at University of Florida Levin School of Law. Would you like to answer that, Joshua?
Sure. So we are a state university, so students who qualify for in-state tuition through a variety of ways are usually about 22,000. I have to double check the exact numbers, but in the 20s. International students are usually in the high 30s, so $38,000, $39,000, $40,000 for the tuition, but that only includes the tuition.
The next question is from our Facebook viewer, Sandeep Kashyap. He says, I have done a 3-year LLB program in India. Can I do my LLM in the US?
So the 3 years in India, the LLB?
Yes.
For sure. So that they can apply. So they already have he mentioned that he already have a degree from India, right?
Yes. See, this is but a 3-year law degree, not the 5-year BA LLB. This is a 3-year LLB program.
Yeah, they can apply.
All right.
And I put in the chat a link from the LSAC, which they have for every country in the world. What is a general number where, like, which degree will qualify? And in the chat for India, for most schools, 3-year bachelor's plus Bachelor of Laws, integrated 5-year Bachelor of Laws. Bachelor of Laws is considered first professional exam. So you can ask each school individually what they would say to it, but the key at a school like UF is, do you have a first degree in law?
Yeah.
Thank you, Joshua. Yes, Samudra.
The cost question that the JD cost question for Davis. So it's about the $49,000, the tuition and fees.
Right. Thank you. And thank you so much, Joshua, for sharing that link in the chat box. I'm sure our students will look that up. So we have a question from the Zoom chat room. A student called Mukesh Kumar says, I have an LLM already. Please tell me about the PhD program. Perhaps you could talk about both your law schools.
So UC Davis, right now, we don't have a SJD program or a PhD program, but if you are research focused or wanted to get into academia, that's when most of the people wanted to do a PhD or SJD. So I would recommend, again, just do a simple Google search and see what are the schools, and then kind of narrow down a list. Unfortunately, we don't have right now.
And then for UF, we have an SJD in taxation. So it's only available for people who are on the tax route for academics. But there are schools that have what we call a general SJD, which is you choose the topic, you work with an advisor. And so I agree with Davis completely. This is a kind of do the research, figure out which school has the SJD or JSD in the area that you're interested in, and ask them about kind of what happens after people graduate from those programs. Most of them, I think, are foreign lawyers and law professors who end up going to their home country to work. It's not really as popular a route at most schools to become a professor in the United States, though it is not impossible.
Okay. Joshua, I'd like to tie that into our next query from Anusha, who's written on Zoom, saying, what are the possibilities for an international applicant for a fully funded PhD or an SJD? So is it possible for them to get funding, a full funding for the SJD program?
Just speaking about UF, I can't speak about other schools. I don't really think so. Unlike a PhD, which is kind of revenue taking, like they're spending the money for a fully funded. For the most part, from my understanding, SJD, JSD programs in America are revenue generating. And so I would say if you have really good credentials, you can get a large scholarship, but you would want to kind of fortify that with external funding usually.
Yeah, I would recommend the Fulbright route, may be a good option. Also, ask the law school that have a PhD program if they have research or teaching assistantships that maybe partially can help.
All right. So Anusha has two more questions linked to this. So one is, what are the chances of an LLM graduate from a non-US law school getting an admission to a doctoral program in the US? Is it very difficult for an international LLM student to get admission to a law program, to a SJD program in particular?
So I can only speak to UF, and almost all of our SJDs have either an LLM in taxation from UF or top-ranked tax school. I don't think it's impossible, but the person would apply and kind of show that they already have that foundational level. Some schools might say you can do our SJD contingent on doing the LLM first, and that is more common.
The next question again from a viewer, Anusha, is as the evaluation pattern in India is different, given that the CGPA is on a 10 scale, is it necessary for a student to order a WES evaluation or credential evaluation of their documents when submitting the application? Or should they wait, should they check this on individual law school websites? What do you advise?
My recommendation, as long as your transcript is in English, we have our admission officer is pretty very familiar with and have seen hundreds of thousands of transcripts. So for UC Davis, it's not necessary to get evaluation, but they can submit their law school report cards and grade reports and all that. And yeah, we are very comfortable.
What about at UF? Do you need credential evaluations?
Sure. So for UF, you have to apply on LSAC, and LSAC you a charge called the CAS report, and I think it's about $180. And as part of that, your transcripts go to LSAC. They evaluate them on the scale of each country, and then they tell us what the equivalent is. So it's part of a fee that you pay for in order to get that. And so if you are applying to schools through LSAC, you want to kind of pay that fee once and apply to multiple schools rather than kind of trying to pay only for one school to do that with.
Yeah, I completely agree. So yeah, so we have other way like online way to apply. So the students can submit their transcripts, but the LSAC, yeah, they have to pay that credential evaluation fee.
Okay. So the next question is about, again, submitting a research proposal for a doctoral program. Would a research proposal focusing on the Indian law issues diminish their chances of getting admission, or should their research proposal be something more global, international sort of issues? Should they be focusing on something like that?
I think that would be a school by school basis for those SJD programs. These are tiny programs compared to JD and LLM. sometimes.
And it could be by professor, the faculty member too.
Okay.
So I think I would really recommend for this PhD interest. That's great. But I think the student need to find maybe the first step a faculty member that have the same research focus, and then have a communication with that faculty member, and then apply and even try to do some reading of that member's publications and have a feeling which type of research they're doing before you write in the proposal.
Okay. So we have the next query from Ria Saga on Zoom, and her next three questions are all on JD programs. So the first one is, as an international student you know, being a non-American citizen, would that impact her admission prospects for a JD program?
It should not. So this is going to be a little bit of what we call inside baseball in America. But what schools generally look at is your LSAT and your GPA. Because you're an international student, if you did not study in the US, your GPA doesn't get reported for rankings purposes. So a lot would be heavily dependent on your LSAT score. But I think you should be able to apply to JD programs in America without any issue of your citizenship or nationality. I know that there are plenty of F1 JD students in the United States at top law schools.
So adding to this question, I have a point to ask here. So typically in India, the bachelor's degree program is a 3-year program, especially if you're a BA, BSc or a BCom student, or an engineering student, of course, does a 4-year bachelor's degree in India. Now, if a student with a 3-year bachelor's degree wants to apply for the JD program, would that be possible? Or would they need to have a 4-year bachelor's degree? Because in the US, they would be doing a 4-year bachelor's degree and then taking the LSAT and then you know, joining a JD program. So I just want to check that.
So I don't have firsthand experience with that. I know it's a complicated question because somebody had asked it to me a little while ago. So I did some research on it. I would check with the school specifically, just to make sure that it's a bachelor equivalent. And so
Yeah.
conversion process.
Okay.
Yeah, I recommend the same thing.
Okay. So let me move on to another student's question. Maybe we can come back here again. So we have a question from Sakina Haider. Is it true that difficulty level varies for bar exams in different states in the United States?
The bar exams are hard, but each state will have what we call a cut score. And so you can get the same exact score and pass the bar in one state, but fail it in another. So a lot of states have created what we call the UBE, the Uniform Bar Exam, where if you take it in one state, the score can transfer over. So if you go to that great resource that Samudra sent, NCBE, you can search by cut score to see which bar exam might be the best one for you to take.
Right. All right, so we have the next question from R. Paul, who wants to know, can you please brief us about the scholarships for undergraduate law program and the eligibility criteria for it? I think you might want to reiterate that JD, the first level law program is actually a master's level program. So you might just want to reiterate that for our students. Over to you, either of you can answer that.
So the question about the JD scholarships,
yes.
That I'm
The
not
question
here.
the question was, can you brief us about the scholarships for undergraduate law programs and the eligibility criteria for it? So I think we need to clarify to our students that there is no undergraduate law program, that it's actually a graduate level program. The first degree of law in the US is a graduate level program. So students have to do a bachelor's degree of 4 years first in any subject, and then take the LSAT exam, and then they join the JD program, which is a 3-year program. So perhaps you could add on to that if you like.
Sure. So I went to the University of Maryland for my bachelor's. I knew I wanted to go to law school. So I took courses in areas of kind of legal education at the undergrad. I joined the pre-law society and the pre-law club. I spoke to the undergraduate pre-law advisor. But for 99.9% for the most part, you're studying what you want for your undergraduate major and then using the LSAT or the GRE at some schools to apply for the Juris Doctor degree. I think one or two schools have started kind of playing around with an undergraduate Bachelor of Law, but I'm not familiar with the kind of specifics for them since most of my work is with the LLMs.
So about the scholarship part at UC Davis, that the JD programs, if the student go to their website and there are like a Dean's Merit Scholarship, Martin Luther King Public Interest Scholarship. So there are different categories of scholarships that they could apply or their application will be considered. And, but if you, I mean, I have been getting this question lately from many students that US born, but then they went back to India and they're US citizens. So, and those students eligible for financial aid. So, or they can talk to the registrar's office to see how to establish the residency. And Davis that have that resident tuition amount and then international, it's a big difference, significant. So I would, if you are in the audience, are a US born, US citizen, or a permanent resident, that I would recommend that talk to the law school you want to apply, the registrar's office, to see how can you establish your the residency, and then which category you will be eligible, that out of state or in state or whatever that the tuition breakdown they show in the website. And then also look for the other scholarships like Dean scholarships that may not look for your citizenship.
Thank you for touching upon that, Samudra, because that's a question a lot of us also at Education USA get, especially from American citizens who are living in India. So thank you so much for touching on that.
And I just want to add
Joshua,
one more thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just want to, the same topic, add one more thing just came to my mind.
Sure.
The students, these US born students who live in India, they want to directly apply for JDs. I have heard from some students that's what they want to do, because they are doing like a business management in India. So I know that Joshua mentioned that earlier, that you don't need to have a first degree in law if you want to go to JD. It can be a music degree or political science or anything. So those students that who are studying a different major for their first degree, they could apply for JD. They can go that route. But if they have already a law degree, first degree in India, but then the students ask me what's the easiest route, then they don't have to take the LSAC exam. So that's another thing, that if they can avoid, some law schools do provide that LLM to JD program, that they
you start with an LLM program and then transfer to a JD?
Yeah, some law schools. So please check with the law school.
All right. Joshua, I'm just coming back to that point you mentioned a little earlier, that there are some law schools in the US now offering an undergraduate law program. That would be very new for our students in India. So where would they need to go and look for information on those programs? Would the LSAC website provide that, or which website would you recommend, or the American Bar Association website? Where should they look for information?
I'll do a little bit of research on that and get that back to you. I'm not sure.
Okay, great.
I don't know if doing an undergraduate degree will let you become a lawyer. It's just like for jobs that you want, you get to say you're a law major. So you'll just have to be careful with that. So I'll send that to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We appreciate your helping us with that research. All right, the next question is from Rahul Setia. I've just entered my 4th year of the 5-year BA LLB program here in India. I hope to graduate in June 2022. I want to go for the LLM in the US soon after that. When should I start with the preparations for the same? Could you please let me know the timeline that I need to adhere to in order to ensure timely admission to an LLM program in the US? Joshua? Yes, please, Samudra.
I mean, my recommendation is soon as possible, normally like at least 1 year before. But with current circumstances, I mean, if you with COVID and everything, if you have a lot of time to put together your personal statement, the CV, I would just even start right now, even approaching law schools even right now. But normally at UC Davis, we do have a kind of year-round applications we take, so that you can apply at least year ahead.
And for UF, we won't accept your application more than 10 months in advance. So for August, we open up the application the first week of September. So you would have a little bit of time to go before if you were applying to UF.
Thanks. So we have two questions tied to the, how important our previous academic performance. So how important would you say grades are? Would you say a low GPA would prima facie eliminate a student's chances? And linked to that again is another question saying, is it just the LSAT score that you would consider for successful admission? What's the criteria for successful admission? So just tying in these two questions.
So admissions officers will say, and there is truth to it, that they take a holistic approach at every school, and they look at the resume and the personal statement and the recommendation letters. And I 100% believe all of them when they say that. But there are two things that get reported to the US News and World Report, and that's the LSAT score and the undergraduate GPA, which, as I said, for international students who studied abroad won't count. And so you can see every year what a school's LSAT median is, and they tend to be around the same 1 or 2 points above. And so I would say really you want to have as strong of an application as possible. And on the margins, you want to have a compelling personal statement. You want to have a really good kind of reason for wanting to go. You want to have good recommendation letters. But for instance, if you have all of that, but you don't have the GPA and you don't have the LSAT to be competitive, it is possible but difficult and an uphill battle. The ABA 509 reports, and they're on the ABA required disclosure site. And I just actually did a presentation on this to American University, so I'll put it in the chat. You can see the law school medians, GPAs, 25, 75s for every school. And this again is only for the JD program. So I would say good LSAT score, good letters of recommendation, good application, and you should be in a good position.
Thanks. So we have two very interesting questions now. The first one is, I would like to ask if there is any good LLM program for alternate dispute resolution or maybe securities law. Any recommendations from either of you? Alternate dispute resolution or securities law?
We can do a search and let you know. I'm sorry, I can't think of it.
I understand, yeah.
So the US News will have kind of specialty rankings, and it's not ranking LLM programs, it's ranking kind of the faculty who teach in those areas. And there's an entire section for ADR, arbitration negotiation. And so what you can do is you can match up the highly ranked schools based on their professors, and then see which of those schools has a specialty in alternative dispute resolution. Securities regulation will be folded into more corporate law. So you can try to do an LLM with a specialization in corporate law, and you can see if there is an LLM only in securities regulation. That might be a little bit too special for 24 credits, but in the broader umbrella of corporate law, that's certainly an option.
The next one is, do either of your schools offer courses allied to artificial intelligence law in the JD program?
Yes, that's one of the big things at the University of Florida as an institution is AI. So we have an AI and the Law seminar, which is being taught this fall. We have joint appointments with the College of Engineering for professors who are kind of working on these cutting edge issues. And I think that that's just something that most schools will have people who kind of specialize in that, especially going forward.
Okay. We have a question, are there any pre-law courses available as a UG major? And is it helpful to do this pre-law track to get into a JD program?
So my advice would be that it helps you kind of understand law school. Each major undergrad institution will have an advisor. They'll tell you which courses will be good for you to take. They'll bring in lawyers. They'll hopefully bring in law schools to speak to the students. And so I don't think it gives you an advantage necessarily in the substance. There's people who do mathematics or engineering and then do very well in the law school, but I think it helps kind of put you on the right track, where if you know you want to go to law school, kind of just baseline knowledge that you get, connections that you start building, doing internships as an undergraduate student in law firms or with judges. So it starts the runway a little bit earlier, but it is definitely not necessary.
Okay. The next question is, what would be the fees for a 2-week English for legal professionals course that you mentioned earlier? And will there be an entrance exam for this course? Samudra, would you?
No, we don't have an entrance exam. If you're even a freshman in law, you could participate. Actually, let me look the fees because we just had a remote program. Let me get back to you in the chat, the fees.
Okay. What I would suggest, otherwise, Urusa, who has asked this question, Urusa, I would suggest you take down the email ID for Samudra, which is mentioned here on the screen and at UC Davis. And please write to her perhaps after this session, and she could get back to you after some research as well. And Joshua has very quickly done some research online, and he shared a link for the University at Buffalo, which has an undergraduate program. So thank you so much, Joshua. That was really quick and very, very helpful. Thank you. Right. So we're almost at the end of the session now. It's 7:30. So I'll just ask you for some closing comments. Basically, what I'd like to ask of both of you is to tell us about what are some of the current and emerging key areas in law practice, both in the US and globally, that our students should be aware of. I mean, just as an example, with this COVID pandemic situation, healthcare law possibly is going to be a very big thing in the future, in the near future. But from your own perspective, what are, in your opinion, some of the current and emerging areas in law practice in the US particularly and globally as well, please? I'd love to hear your opinion.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm very, very specialized in my new job because our tax program is like 95% of our LLM students. So I really mostly work on tax, but the tax issues that we're seeing cross-border, international treaties, kind of how can governments kind of tax their citizens when money is crossing borders seems to be very popular. So we get a lot of international tax lawyers from all over the world who want to come to UF to specialize in international tax law in order to kind of add that to their repertoire when they go back to their home country, or to work at a US desk or let's say the India desk at an accounting firm or at a law firm. So something like that. So sorry, I can't be more helpful broadly, but I'll just default to AI is important.
Right. Yeah, AI. Definitely, yes. From your perspective, Samudra?
So I think with the globalization and internationalization, it's what I have seen. I recently presented at a conference at University of Mumbai. So they talked about, especially for Indian law students, more and more international LLM, even general one. It's important because there are a lot of companies, international companies, like in Bangalore, and there are a lot of opportunities. So I would recommend that any LLM international, that's what I have been hearing from India's side, Indian law school side, that there are opportunities, and Indian law schools are encouraging these students. And obviously with the COVID, that especially for India, that what I'm hearing, that labor laws and it's important because of the how with COVID, the migrant workers, that's a huge issue in India, like especially I'm sure you know more than me, the Pune region and those borders and everything. There's huge issues like with COVID. So those things will be the emerging areas, but I can kind of talk from like India side.
Right. Okay. What about the US? I mean, what are some of the emerging law issues in the US?
I know that, I mean, I just took a higher education law class, that the higher education, even the policies related to student mobility, like even immigration, those are the ones, I mean, if you may have heard like a month ago that all the schools, United States schools jump into lawsuits about
Correct.
issues.
Right.
I'm sure
Right.
you heard that,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Even I wrote a legal advocacy piece for that.
Right.
So yeah, so I think those are the kind of, let's see with the election and all that can change things too.
Okay. Thank you so much to both of you. It's been a wonderful hour and a half of deliberations on legal education in the US. I'm sure our students have learned a lot from the information shared by both of you. Before we close for the session, I'd just like our students to share in the chat box. What has your session experience been like? Why don't you just share one word of what you thought about the session? So we'd love to get some feedback as well. So I'd request the audience to just type in the chat box in one word, what has your session experience been like? And thank you so much, Joshua Alter and Samutra Kugel, for joining us today. I know it's very early in the US, and but we really, really appreciate the effort you've put into behind the scenes in my discussions with you over the past, month or two now. And thank you so much for joining us, very early in the morning for both of you. And we're getting some excellent, if you can see the chat box, we're getting some excellent response as well from the students who joined the session. So thank you. Wonderful.
I just want,
sure.
oh, sorry, I just want, okay, sorry, I don't, yeah.
So one young lady says, saved me hours of research. Special thank you for the replies.
I just want to add, it's $700 because
Yes.
this time, the summer, it was a remote online program. Okay. So it's just the $700 because there's no housing, no airplanes, nothing involved. So the cost is, this summer was $700. And we are hoping we keep offering this type of even remotely, the legal professional, like the English program.
Right. So that answer specifically was for Urusa, who had requested for the cost for the English for legal professionals course. So just so others don't get confused about that. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're getting some great feedback in the chat box. You could just scroll through that. So thank you once again to all our students, parents, perhaps some counselors, school counselors, as well as maybe faculty members from law schools who've joined us as well, and to our speakers as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. And don't forget, students, please keep following the Education USA India calendar and join us for the upcoming undergraduate application camp, the graduate application camp, and the Discovery series webinar. Right? We look forward to meeting you in all of those sessions and in guiding you to your US higher education journey. Thank you all. It's been wonderful having you. Thank you and bye-bye. Good night from India and a good morning to our folks in the US who've joined us.
Thank you so much for hosting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you and bye-bye.